fucking song. And forget about best, worst song, whatever. Just finish this song. I almost feel like they just gave up on it. That's what pissed me off about it. I do like Push Comes to Shove. It gives a little different flavor. There's always that song on a Van Halen album that's a little different, like Little Dreamer or Women in Love. Something that's just a little different. It gives you a little different feel. It gives you a lot of character. There's a lot of great Dave stuff in there. That's why I picked up One Foot Out the Door. It bothered me that it wasn't finished. That's for sure. What do you say about that, Dave?
Well, that's why the song is called One Foot Out the Door.
I guess so.
Because they had one foot out the door trying to get the album done so they could go on tour. I will tell you, Bill, that you are not alone in your love for One Foot Out the Door.
Okay.
Because a few weeks after we had done the podcast, I was, of course, on VH Links, and that song had come up, and there were a couple of people who really like that song a lot, like it's one of their favorites off the album. And I'm sitting there reading going, man, I hope they don't listen to the podcast because they're not going to like me that much anymore. But hey, that's the great thing is that, different strokes for different folks, and everyone's got their own opinion. And, it's nice that we can agree that Fair Warning is a great album, but as far as picking the favorite song or the least favorite song, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. It's okay. I mean, I agree with you, Dave. The song sounds unfinished.
Yeah.
But, I can't take anything away from the solo.
Oh, the solo's amazing.
The solo is killer, but the song could have used, like, another week of work or something.
Absolutely.
But that's just my opinion. What do I know?
Also, we come on letter number 17 from Mark O'Brien, and he says, "Hey guys, love the podcast, but I have been jumping around and not listening in order, and I just heard episode 1 and was shocked to hear that you didn't understand how the song 5150 was called 5150. It is right there in the lyrics. When you go half with someone, you go 50-50, but since this person in the song always wants one more, then it would make it 51-50. So I draw the line and meet you halfway, which would be 50% of 100. But in this instance, the other person can't do that. He wants one more." Mark, I swear to God, it has been over 30 years. I had no idea that was the situation. Thank you for enlightening me on that. Thank you for drawing attention to that. That is very clever. I am speechless. I don't know what to say. That is absolutely true. Thank you for pointing that out. Dave, what do you make of that?
It seems so obvious now that he points it out.
Right? I'm an idiot.
Right?
I know.
Because I was just so tied in that 5150 was the
criminally
California or LA or whatever it was police code for, mentally crazy person.
Escaped,
or whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever the politically correct term is.
Right.
But anyway, so I never could figure out why they named the song after that, knowing that's what the police code was for. But now that he's explained it that way, man, I'm going with that.
It's crazy.
And it only took like 30 plus years for someone to finally explain to me.
It's
you know
incredible.
what? I am going to sleep well tonight now that I know the answer.
Absolutely. And we are on to letter number 18, which comes from Daryl Alber. And he says, skeptical about a stadium-type multi-band bill with Van Halen. That said, do you think Ed and Al, if this is being considered, are telling or / asking Dave that he needs to hone in those vocals and decrease the shtick he did in 2007 if they are going to be playing for many fans there to see, say, I reunited Journey and say, I like Van Halen, but what's up with Dave? I would think that may be a part of Van Halen never playing at the Super Bowl. A screechy off-key Dance the Night Away in front of 100 million people on the TV audience would be a disaster. Your thoughts? Well, Daryl, I'm going to say, yeah, I think Ed and Al have been trying to saddle Dave since 1974 to no avail. Dave is a wild bucking bronco, even at 64, and he is unpredictable, and that's part of his charm. But I think if they did a bill where they were playing with another major band, I think there'd be time constraints on the set that might force him to keep a little tighter. as far as the Super Bowl goes, most of those vocals are pre-recorded, so I don't think Dance the Night Away would be a problem. What do you think, Dave?
I really hope that they do have the cojones to tell Dave, look, dude, you were a little iffy last time.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do, but you gotta do something. Because Ed doesn't strike me as the kind of, like, in-your-face kind of guy to say something like that.
Right.
I mean, then go have somebody else do it. Go have management do it, right? Like, Dave, the only way they're going to pay us is if,
right,
we swear that you get a vocal coach and work on that.
Yeah.
But he definitely needs to do something.
Yeah.
Whether they do stadiums or not, he just needs to. And there's no shame in that, by the way.
That's true.
I mean, Mick Jagger did that.
All of them do it, yeah.
I mean, he got a vocal coach.
Of course.
And because, it's at some point, you get to an age, you can't just go out there. So you gotta work at it because, I mean, your voice is 60, 70 years old now.
Yeah.
So do what you got to do to make it work for you. But I agree with you. If Dave's just going to go out there doing the same thing he did last time, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't need to hear Panama like that again.
That's for sure.
When Dave starts singing outside his wheelhouse, no, seriously.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I mean, it's just Dave, stay in your wheelhouse and you'll be fine. If you're going to start changing stuff, man, good luck to you.
Absolutely. And, even Freddie Mercury had a vocal coach, so there's no shame in that. Everybody had a vocal coach, so there's no reason that Dave can't rein that in. We are on to letter number 19 and our last letter for the night, and that comes from Tom from Alphabetalica, the Metallica podcast, and it is Tom from Oxford, from the United Kingdom, and he says, I absolutely adore your podcast. Your long-form range of topics is something I look forward to every month. Cheers, especially for getting me listening to Skyscraper again on your recent chat with Magic Moreno. What a treat. I dig the show so much that I actually mentioned you guys on a recent bonus episode of my own Metallica podcast, Alphabetalica. I have written in before, and I'm the guy with the A through Z Metallica podcast. Anyway, I did a little series on my favorite music pods, and you guys are featured are 7 minutes and 29 seconds in. My question is, are there any music podcasts either of you enjoy listening to? All the best, Tom. Tom, thank you so much for writing in. I really appreciate it. Tom, I just want to shout out to you that was very sweet of you for including us in on your favorite podcast and including us there. We enjoy your pod as well. I'm a big Metallica fan myself. Well, Dave, on the other hand, likes to listen to the Monkees. He's more of a Monkees guy.
No, I am. And in fact, I was going to say the only other musical podcast I really listen to is Zilch, which is about the Monkees, which I've spoken about before. So
right,
that's the only one that I would recommend.
And the ones that I listen to are a host of them, so I'm going to list them out. Pods and Sods I listen to all the time. Three Sides of the Coin, which is a Kiss podcast. My favorite Kiss podcast is Kiss FAQ with Julian Gill. I love Julian. I think he's fantastic. The Kiss Room, I love them as well. Rock End or Roll I listen to sometimes as well. Rock Talk with Mitch LaFon is always good. Disciple Geek with Chris Sinzak and Aaron Camaro. Love those guys. They are fantastic. Dean Del Rey, the comedian from Let There Be Talk. He is unbelievable. Love him too. Rolling Stone Music Now. Listen to all the time. Eddie Trunk Podcast. The amazing Eddie Trunk. The Hustle with John. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, but he's phenomenal. Rock Solid Podcast with Pat Francis. Love him. And I've been recently listening to Cobras and Fire, who did a few Van Halen podcasts, which I enjoyed. And those are the musical podcasts I listen to. And that wraps up our mailbag segment. And we are on to our 35th anniversary deep dive discussion on 1984, the Van Halen Classic. Dave and I get into a deep dive discussion all about every single song on there and all the little deets involved. Coming up next, take a listen.
But anytime you gather together over 5,000, 10,000 people in one place, you're creating your own little city. And that's why we have our own little police force here. We have our own first aid teams, and that's why we have all the little ancillary things that make up a city. And people express great surprise when there's a problem or a difficulty. And that's why I say, oh, you mean like a football game? It's the exact same thing. You go to a political rally, it's not much different. Anytime you gather that large number of people, you're bound to get a few of the rotten apples with the good.
If you would like to send us a letter asking a question or making a statement or whatever you'd like to say, you can send it to ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com.
Hi, my name is Megan Hill. I play David Lee Roth and Eddie and Dave. You're listening to Dave and Dave Unchained.
Need a laugh? Check out the Funny How Comedy Podcast, which focuses on upbeat conversations with legendary comedians. It's free on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out on Facebook at Funny How Comedy Podcast, on Twitter at Funny How Podcast, on Instagram at Funny How Comedy Podcast, or email us at funnyhowcomedypodcast@gmail.com.
Hey folks, I'd like to introduce you to the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast. Welcome to the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast, where no stone is left unturned in the show's epic quest to review and dissect every single rock album ever made. Join self-proclaimed rock authorities Chris Carson and Lee Bowie on their epic journey to uncover the true classics. You can find the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast wherever podcasts can be found, including Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Our website address is classicrockalbumbyalbum.libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. And we can be reached on Facebook at fb.me/Classic Rock Album by Album. See you soon from the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast.
It's not so much an obsession with trying to be a commercial success. When you say make a band happen, usually that means commercial success, to sell records, to sell tickets, to sell t-shirts. And the whole idea behind Van Halen was that it was a creative outlet for all of us, the four of us in the band. Purely and foremost, it was a way for us to create, not just music, but album covers and design the way the tickets and the advertisements look. And just on and on and on. The way everything that you see and hear from Van Halen was created by one or more of us in the band. And you cannot create these huge, monstrous Tinker toys that take up 9 semi-trucks unless you are a commercial success. But the foremost and initial idea of getting Van Halen to be famous or popular or to sell X amount of records was so that we would have more money to fool around with.
All right, folks, we are celebrating the 35th anniversary of 1984, Van Halen's 6th studio album and one of their all-time classics. We take you back to 1984. The platform was set, basically, for Van Halen to really rise above the pack and become the biggest band in rock, for sure. The 80s embraced the Pasadena foursome in full force. Ed was the leading guitarist on all the magazines at the time. He was at the top of all the polls as to who was the best guitarist, and he was influencing an entire generation of Axemen, and David Lee Roth was the frontman extraordinaire, with the good looks and personality and humor and swagger and style and overall general kick-ass spirit that delivered hard on stage and on the video screen. Van Halen was prime. They were the perfect example of a rock band that took full advantage of the modern 80s at the time. Now, as much as people like to bash Diver Down, and Dave and I have talked about this in a special episode in one of our back catalog, is Diver Down was a huge success, and it really set the stage for Van Halen to come to 1984. It's amazing how they didn't get sidelined and they got really pushed ahead of the pack with Diver Down. Instead of getting washed up in some of the new wave and all the different things that were happening. 1984